Okay, so what is a trauma release session? This is something that I often get questions about, and it's a good question because with every person, it is completely different. I have seen it also with clients who have been more than one session. It has been different every time. So there is a general outline of what a trauma release session is. And how I structure the session for it to be the most efficient for us to move through what is needing to be moved through. But there is a part of this that the intention in which you are coming with, the layers in which you have or haven't worked with, and the things and the vulnerability that you are stepping in with definitely influences each and every session. So I'm going to give a brief overview of what a session generally looks like, and what you can somewhat expect. But again, prefacing the fact that every session is different, even if it's with the same people, because there's different things that are coming up. There's different layers that are evolving, and there's different ways that the body wants to prioritize that healing. So I always tell people healing is like peeling back layers of an onion. You cannot peel back all the layers at once, because you actually will incur more trauma than what is already there if we move things that are not ready to be moved through. So, in general, I always look at the intention in which clients book their session with as kind of a navigational piece of why you're coming. I sometimes have clients who do not put an intention in when they book. And that can be difficult sometimes because then that's like pulling fish out of a barrel. And it's one of those things that you can have kind of like an array of different things that come forward. And oftentimes I will text a client or message them if there's just too much to try and navigate through, because there is sometimes where we need a bit of that direction. So setting an intention for your session is kind of number one when it comes to these kinds of sessions, because then it gives me an idea of why you're coming, what you're looking for. Just because someone has referred you, which is a lot of my clientele base, is something that is beautiful, but curiosity is not something that is a great intention. I often tell people when you're setting an intention for a session, I want you to really look within and ask yourself, what do I want from this? If I had a wish, what would that wish be from investing this time, investing this money, investing this emotional capacity into a session like this? Because if I am coming into this space really intentional, if I know an overall theme of what I'm looking for, if I've really sat with myself to understand what do I want, that is going to be the beautiful chemistry of the work doing the work and you being ready for it to do so. So as you sit with wanting to book a session, it's really looking for the intention, and there is no wrong intention. That's something that I often hear people say, well, like, I don't feel like my intention's good enough. I don't feel like it's a big enough reason. I often hear people say, well, I don't have enough trauma to come and see you. And that's not the intent of this work at all, because this work is also to really understand your deepest and truest self, to come into the deepest expression of your authenticity, to be able to navigate things that feel hard to navigate, to be able to see a clear picture of where you want to go when you're feeling lost. So that's also something that I do want people to recognize, that this work isn't just for trauma survivors. That's a huge root of the work that I do, but this is for literally anyone and everyone. I have had many people come to me being like, I was so hesitant to come because I don't feel I have enough trauma, but this session was so needed. And it's really where we're talking to the body and the soul and figuring out what it is that the body and soul want to discuss with you and navigate with you. So when you step into a session, the intention in which you're coming is a huge part of it. And yes, it makes my job, I wouldn't say easier, but more clear, but it's more preparing for you to be able to know the intention in which you're stepping into the session with. Okay, so that's step number one. Step number two is you come for the session. You're here for the 2 to 2.5 hour session, and it is all about bridging three different parts together. So we always start a session with a charting system. So I move through 75 different charts before you get here and asking your body and soul what it is that the highest priority and deepest efficiency of our focus needs to be for your session. And that can come from a place of belief systems, traumatic events. This can come from nutritional deficiencies you have in your body. This can come from tissue salts and different chemical balances that are imbalanced in the body. This can come from spiritual energetic sources of where there are imbalances. This can come from very physical systematic systems within the body that are not functioning properly. So there's a plethora of information that I pull from, and I ask the body and the soul, your body and soul, what it is that is the highest priority that we need to focus on to create the most reverberation and shift of healing throughout your body. So I write all of those things down. It's usually on a sticky note that kind of looks something, oh, that's really hard to see, something like this. That will then have most of the things come forward that we're focusing on. And then as we're in session, I talk to you about the chart and what it is that has come up in the chart. We navigate it. And usually that's where spirit or your higher self will start to also work with me and bring things forward for us to talk about and navigate, so that the brain, the mental body, can really understand why we're doing the work that we're doing, so that when I get you on the physical table, the massage table, to do the actual visceral somatic body work, your mental body isn't fighting me. Your mental body knows why we're doing what we're doing. Your mental body understands where this conscious, subconscious, or unconscious mind has been holding these programs, patterns, protocols, and processes that are keeping you from living in a healthy, evolved way of being in your physical body. And so as we talk about the charts, we then also pull some cards to see what your angels, guides, and loved ones on the other side have as a message for you that day. And then usually the last hour, half hour, depending on how long it takes us to get through the charts, that is where we then do the body work. So you lay on the massage table. I often tell people you can just have a little nap here if you feel you need to. But then I walk you through what I'm moving through in the body and how I'm assisting and facilitating that removal of energy, that connection of things within the body to really start to function. And this is where it is hands-on physical manipulation of the fascia, the tissues, the organs, where I'm deeply massaging the body in maybe some different ways than massage. So oftentimes I'm working on people's abdomens, because all of our vital organs in the abdomen hold a lot of different energy centers. Oftentimes I'm working on the feet, the neck, the head, the posterior back, so kidneys, spine, those kinds of things. So this is where it's really kind of dependent on what's going on in your system, what's going on in your life, and what it is you have worked through or haven't worked through that really influences a session. And so as we move through the three kind of pillars of a session, that's where all your questions, all the things that you need to ask are welcome. The sessions are very informal, and it's because I want you to get everything you possibly can out of a session. So this is where there's often some crying, some laughing, some moving through things, some questioning, and we navigate all of that in our time together so that you can really benefit from all the things that are awaiting you in your session. So as you can see on my offerings page, there are 3 layers now. I used to do trauma release under just like the whole umbrella of trauma release, but I've now kind of broken it down into 3 different layers: the release, the return, and the remembrance. And I did that because oftentimes people are questioning if they have enough trauma to come and see me. And that's not the only intent of my work. works in many different layers and many different ways. And so there's a huge part of this that if this is something that you feel your body is really holding, if you feel like there's lots of layers that you haven't been able to work through in your life, that is where I'd really recommend the release session. If this is something where you've done a lot of work, you've gotten into your body, you're in a communication with your body and feel in your body, and you're wanting to like further, where do I go from here? What does my life look like from here? How do I evolve deeper into myself from here? That is where I would recommend the return, because we're returning to that baseline of soul, we're returning to that baseline of authenticity. And then if you're looking to go even deeper, where you are really looking to speak to your spirit guides, to be in connection with your higher self, and you've done a lot of the preliminary work. I consider it preliminary because you need to be releasing what you no longer have space for. You need to be returning to your authentic self before you can really start to develop and build that relationship with your higher self and spirit team. If you've done that work already, you've been moving through different things, even if it wasn't with me, then that is where I recommend the remembrance, where you're really wanting to dive into that spiritual body, where you're really wanting to understand that energetic self and all of the things that weave through you and around you. That is the remembrance, where we're remembering the deep wisdom of our soul, of our ancestors, of really understanding how do I build this communication within myself and that communication of all of the bodies. And that's the remembrance session. So that is trauma release in a nutshell. I also always preface with clients that I am not here to be a lifelong therapist. That was never the intention of my work when I started this. I really wanted people to find what they needed by working with me and be able to graduate to other things. I often have people say, like, what is your follow-up? How do I need to follow up? In a session, I usually give homework and tools and different resources for you to be able to really continue the work as you go home. We do a lot of work in a 2 to 2.5 hour time period, and I often call it like a marathon. And people usually feel usually pretty shitty after a session. They're tired, they sometimes are sore, they sometimes just feel like all those layers of that onion that we were working with, that kind of like movement of them in their systems. And then they feel usually absolutely incredible post session by 2 or 3 days. And that's where they really get to see the like actual work taking root. So this is something that I don't have specific follow-up times. Sometimes I see clients once and I never see them again, and that's all they've needed. Sometimes I see people 2, 3, 4, 5 times. But there's also a bit of a intention that I have set that if we make it to the 5 session kind of threshold, that we have a really deep conversation of what is your intent of still coming back? What is it that you are still struggling with? Because within 3 to 4 sessions, most things should be moved through. I do have clients that use this as a self-care practice, and that's a bit of a different story. But if this is something that is taking 5 sessions, I am not here to create dependent cycles within my clients. I am here to really empower you and bring that space back into your life of you being the co-creator and the person guiding your life story. I am not the one doing it for you. I'm giving you the tools, the resources, and the empowerment to be able to do this for yourself. So that's something that I also like people to just know. This is not something that I want to see you for the rest of your life. As much as I really deeply enjoy the connections with my clients, I also want you to find that independence and that autonomy within your healing, discovery, and remembrance journey, to know that the power is within you. In order for it to be really supportive and corrective within a trauma release lens, I'm not here to enable certain stories or different behaviors. I'm here to help you support and correct those stories so that you can live an empowered, thriving life. So that is what it means to move through a session. I hope that that helps. And if you have any other questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me via the website or by email.